see. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's gonna look really nice. Yeah. You have a good, a good team here. Good. Yeah. So we look forward, like I said, everything possible. We look forward to finishing the project and be proud to ask you for referral. Like, this your name. Yeah, seriously. I mean, we'll do our very best to make it happen. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Any questions during the process? Call, text me, weekend or night. If you have any concern, question, or issue, like let's say you have a water leak or anything. Any issue, just call me. I'm available. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Have a great day again. Yeah. Thank you. We ready? Excuse me, ma'am. Was that yours? Excuse me. That wasn't yours.
Hello.
Beautiful.
Oh, Shalonda, I gotta talk to you after this.
Okay. Okay. Right on.
Okay.
Hey, Meg.
Hey, Shalonda. Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Pretty good. Hold on, I gotta print my Q&A out.
I'll be letting people in as they show up.
I had it at 1:30 on mine, and that's why I was like panicking. I was like panicking. I was like, well, I didn't have it. I was like, I'm thinking it's starting. You guys are looking for me, so I think I gave myself an extra half hour so I didn't get double booked.
Okay. All right. Where is my printer? Oh, here it is. Really? Okay, hold on one second. Everyone, you guys can chat. We're gonna do an official start at 2:10. Give a few more people chances to come in. Okay. All right. So welcome everybody to our career exploration webinar. Today, we're going to have a focus on the trades, and specifically today with our guest speaker, we're going to discuss construction. We have Charles from POIC with the pre-apprenticeship, and we also have Mr. Joshua Cheatham from, he's a director of construction management. And I'm going to allow both of them to give a brief introduction, and then we're going to do a breakout group so that everyone else can have like 3 minutes to introduce themselves to their group. So Joshua, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Josh Cheatham. I worked construction, probably construction about the last 25 years or so. Started when I was in school and continued, up until now. I'm still working in the field. I primarily work on the owner side. So cities, I worked for the Washington State Department of Transportation for a long time. And now I work for a private company where we will represent the city or county in a transportation project, roads and highways and bridges and things like that. So we work alongside the trades and with the construction companies. And so I see a lot of opportunity. I see the amount of construction and the amount of work that's out there and how hard it is to for the companies to find folks, but also realizing that there's a lot of opportunity for people to get good jobs. I mean, I don't think I realized it until I was in senior year, what a journeyman electrician made, and realizing that, man, I could have been doing that instead of going to college. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And, so we're just here to talk about that and, answer any questions folks have.
All right. And Charles, did you want to do a brief introduction of yourself before we do our breakout session?
Sure. My name is Charles Manigo. I have been involved with the trades for several years. My background is I am a journeyman carpenter, but I have a specialty in structural concrete. That's kind of what I have been specializing in over the last maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years. Prior to coming to POIC, where now I run the pre-apprenticeship program, introducing the youth to the trades, because the trades are a viable option for a lot of folks who don't want to go the college route, which is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But as was just said before, there is a ton of construction that's getting ready to break ground here in Oregon. And what better way to change the face of construction than by trying to get out in the community and recruit folks?
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to break out into a quick little icebreaker. I want you guys to take 3 minutes, check in with your group, and share what your fantasy vacation would be.
All right, I'm gonna put you all in breakout groups. There'll be a few of you in each room. You're gonna see something on your screen. I think you have to click it, and then you should go straight to the room. If there's any issues, I apologize. And then we will, from there, all at 2 minutes, give you a 1 minute warning. It'll kind of count down, and that's your time. Make sure you unmute yourself. And if you have the capacity to turn your camera on, I encourage you to do that so you can see each other and who's in the room. All right, here we go into breakout rooms. I'm gonna do 4 rooms. All right. Hey, Bredo, I think everybody's in a breakout group, so I'm going to try to add you to one. Let me see if I can.
Okay.
Shalonda, it looks like yours is having a hard time again. Apologize.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you guys got to know about everyone's fantasy vacations and a little bit more about each other. So we're going to get into our interview with Joshua and with Charles. And I feel that for today's panel, both of you guys can chime in how you guys feel comfortable. I think both questions apply to both of you. The questions apply to both of you guys because although you're both in construction, you're in different areas. So it would be nice to hear both sides. So I want to start off with how important is the trades in 2020?
I'll go ahead and start. I think they're very important in terms of you look at the jobs that are out there and what's missing in the workforce, and skilled tradesmen or women or straight people, excuse me, and those type of jobs where people are doing things are very, very important, and they're needed in our economy right now to get through things. And I'll take an example. I remember being out to dinner with my wife a few years ago, and there's a gentleman and his girlfriend or the lady he was with sitting next to us. When we started talking, come to find out he was from Florida. He came all the way up from Florida to Washington to work on the buildings because they didn't have enough people that were glazers or, to put in the glass in the buildings. And so he was like, he's from Florida. He's like, I don't want to come to Washington. It's too cold. And then he said they showed him how much money he was going to make. So he said, let me go buy me a jacket. And he came up there. So, there's a need for it. And those jobs are, they're good, well-paying careers. It's not, hit and miss. And they usually are covering medical and dental. You'll get a retirement. with them as well. You know, that's all, especially when you're going with the union shops or if you're going with a prevailing wage job. Those things all come into play. And you know, it's very important, especially to drive the economy. But also, like when you look at, when they start talking about the recovery of this economy, and the recovery of this economy, a lot of times what they're going to do, and this is what Obama did, was with the stimulus package. I don't know, I'm sure people heard about stimulus money. That was money put directly into infrastructure, right? And part of that, when they put that money in infrastructure, they also said, hey, you got to have so many apprentices, and what does your workforce look like, and all these different things. Those jobs are out there, and as long as you're providing qualified folks, then you know you'll be able to obtain the work. So just you know, think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. We are finding out more than ever now that, you know, there was such a big push
Charles, your audio is choppy.
into introducing new technology that, hello? Mic check, mic check. Can you guys hear me? Uh-oh. Blah, blah, blah. Hello, 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 hello.
Your audio is choppy.
Is it still?
It's getting clear. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But what I was saying is, we're seeing now, you know, that there was this big push with introducing folks into technology, right? You know, computer engineering and software engineering and things like that, that they kind of got away from trades jobs. And, you know, Portland is a prime example. You know, we have Intel, we have Nike, we now have Under Armour, Adidas. You know, we have all these technologically advanced corporations that are up here, but not anybody up here who can build, you know, the buildings and the structures and things like that they need to be in. We have billion-dollar initiatives, you know, to develop the land out between Forest Grove and Hillsborough. So the trades is something that's going to be here for, you know, quite some time, because there's a ton of land here. And whenever there's, you know, a lot of land, especially on the coast, you know, whether it be east or west, there's always going to be a huge need for folks in the trades. So I think this is a very, very, very lucrative time for, you know, the young folks to get involved into the trades, because, you know, like I said, it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon here.
All right. So while talking about that, what do you think has changed in the trades industry since COVID?
It's kind of hard to tell as of right now, because even though they did, you know, shut down a lot of retail, a lot of businesses and things like that, they really didn't do too much stoppage as far as the trades went. You know, they were doing things like practicing social distancing and stuff like that, but it was always very easy, you know, to just mask up your guys and keep them on site. So we won't really be able to see the effects of that until everything is back up and running. But I do fear that if there is another closure or shutdown, that they will put a hold on, you know, the trades work.
You know, seeing it from a construction management standpoint, the trades haven't necessarily been impacted because usually you already have strong safety protocols.
Mm-hmm.
You already have strong safety protocols established. already to work in a construction site. So what was necessary and required for COVID was just another layer. It was like, okay, now we got to wear masks. Now everybody's got a 100% glove, which a lot of companies were already doing anyway. Now we got to have some extra wash stations or whatever so that people can maintain sanitary or conditions. So those things were just another added layer, and checking temperatures and things like that. What kind of, you know, dovetailing on what Charles was saying is we'll see what the impact is on the economy and how that impacts the amount of jobs and whatnot, because I know our projects that I was managing didn't slow down, but they slowed down the residential and private construction, right? So those were things that were initially stopped, and then they lobbied to get back to work. So they got going back to work. But what you're going to see is all the people that had money that was already programmed or was already budgeted, or, you know, they had it, they kept on going. Now let's see where we are in 6 months. But I have a strong feeling, like I was saying earlier, that to get out of some of these economic issues that the country's in, they'll also be putting more money into infrastructure. They'll be lowering interest rates for people to get better loans to do different things like that. And so there'll be some opportunities as well. They'll probably just be a little bit different.
Okay, so if we have a young person who's never had experience at all in any area of the trades, where should that person start since they have little to no credentialing?
Where should they start as far as what trade or what credentials should they be looking for first?
Just how would they navigate being an experienced individual who may say, I'm interested in trades, but I don't know where to start?
I think for us, the main thing that I like to stress, you know, when I'm talking to a youth is I like to get across to them, it's not, you know, about what you know, it's just about your effort and your ability to show up on time. If they don't know which trade specifically they'd like to go into, we always start with laboring, because laboring is less specific, intense. You know, it's kind of like a jack of all trades. You know, they're the first ones on the site, last ones to leave, and they literally do everything. They can do any and everything. So if they don't know where to start, that's fine. But the one thing that they do have to have is they have to have good effort, and they need to be able to show up on time. I think those are the basics, and you know, if we can get those things, then that's more than half the battle, in my opinion.
I think, yeah, that's true. But I also think that looking at, you know, the programs and whatnot, like with that Charles has and different things like that to get into getting the credentials and working through those where you can get job placements. And because like what I was saying earlier about a lot of those federal programs, and you know, when they talk about prevailing wage or the federal federally funded projects, a lot of them will have requirements for those projects to have apprentice hours. And so but you need to be in that program to qualify to get there. Then that's where you can go ahead and you can build your resume, and you know, the contractors and the different employers can see your work, as well as you getting those opportunities to see if this works for you. Do you like that type of work? And you know, build up on your skill set from what you have in your education. So I think those two things are key, getting into those programs so that you have those credentials, and then maximizing those opportunities by what Charles was saying, like showing up and working hard and, delivering what you're asked to do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Earlier, you both expressed that the trades is an industry where you don't necessarily have to go to college, but can you explain some of those positionings versus the ones you may need some college education into within the same field?
Well, as far as what you may need some colleging on, maybe the managerial side, what else? The infrastructure side, you might need some college courses on. But I mean, you still can, this still is an industry where you can, work your way to the top. It can be kind of difficult, but, if you want to get into construction management, things along those lines, they do have courses. I know Oregon State has a really, really good construction management program there. It's a 3.5-year program, but it has a 1.5-year post-college program also. But as far as which positions you don't need any college for, I mean, I like to use the term roll around in the dirt. Most of the positions where you're rolling around in the dirt, you don't need any type of college for. But a lot of apprenticeships do like, having their applicants have some college experience, because the ideal apprentice, according to most apprenticeships, is somebody who graduated from college, went to the military for 4 years, got out of the military, went to community college, and then came into the apprenticeship program. But it doesn't usually work like that anymore. But yeah, if you want to be on the managerial side, and that's just where you kind of want to start out, yeah, you might need to get into some colleging.
And I think it'd be probably dovetail on that is to differentiate, college from coursework too, because, some of the different trades like electrician and pipe fitters and different things like that have some technical aspects that you need to be familiar with, in terms of how to, because how, like as far as like being an electrician, knowing the gauges and the different things with the wires and whatnot that you need to connect. But that's not necessarily like you need to go get a degree to do that, but you do have to have some aptitude and take some math and some different courses associated with it. And and a lot of them, most of these courses, in Charles, you can correct me if I'm wrong, have some safety aspects as far as classes that you need to take to make sure that you're familiar with the safety protocols for working on construction sites and in those type of environments. A lot of times, like for the sites that I see, most of the laborers have flagging cards and things like that so that they are certified to be controlling traffic, things like that. So, but that's not necessarily you're going to university to get a 4-year degree to do it, but you do have to have, a lot of the apprenticeship programs do have some educational requirements with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you're not going to college, it doesn't mean that, most of these apprenticeship programs are usually about 4 years worth of work experience. So whether you go to college or, you get into an apprenticeship, you're going to be somewhere dedicated, to 4 years of learning. So he's absolutely correct. You do have to get, certain certifications. I don't know of any, unless you have at least your own. So yeah, there are a lot of safety regulations that folks do need to be familiar with. There are certain certifications that you just have to have. And like he said, a little more technical, but that will all be introduced into the educational aspect of whatever apprenticeship.
Okay. So for someone who may have a few blemishes on their background, how has trades been a pathway for success for them?
Well, it's always been a very viable means of employment for folks who have blemishes. The trades are able to overlook a lot of things. Not all. You are still able to make, a very good living. If you have made a mistake in the past. Although times you may not be able to work on certain sites depending on whatever that blemish is. For instance, Intel wants to hire some folks. A lot of times Intel will not hire folks who have felonies, just because of the nature of, the types of computer chips that you'd be exposed to, and being in clean rooms and safe rooms and things like that. But historically, the trades have been a very, very good means of providing for folks who do have blemishes on their backgrounds.
Yeah, and I look at it a lot of times, it's dealing with contractors and that type of stuff. A lot of times they don't care. They just want you to get the work done, and can you do it and do it right and do it efficiently? Are you going to show up on time and, do what you got to do? I was talking to, there's not many folks that look like me when I'm on these job sites, and so I go out there. If I see somebody that does, I'd make sure I speak to them, and I was talking to one dude, like couple months ago on the job, and I was like, man, how did you get into this? Or, I don't, we started talking, and somehow I asked him, it came up, and he's like, man, I just got out of the joint like a couple years ago. So I'm lucky to, I was like, man. And he said, the company he was working for has been cool with him. He said, he shows up and does his job, and don't nobody mess with him. He was a traffic control supervisor, running the traffic control crew, the flagging crew on the job, and, I talked to the inspector, he liked working with him, and, the company said, or the contractor that I do, they said he did good work as well. And nobody was worried about what he, the time that he did, doing whatever he did back then, because it's about what you can do now. But what Charles did bring up, that is a key point, that, depending on the project, depending on the stuff, what you're working on, there could be a lot of companies will drug test, coming in the door. And then some projects will drug test just because, the owner or the type of funding it is, like Federal Rail Administration, like working on a rail job, they're gonna drug test and potentially background check. I mean, even with us, we work in an engineering firm, and we've got to have a drug testing and background check policy to work with Verizon. They're like, what is your policy? Give it to us before they'll sign our contract with us. So that does come into play, but a lot of times it doesn't, so show up, do your job, and do it well. And that's the resume you build.
Thank you. I have a two-part question. So what can one expect who's never worked a day in the trades actively with a crew? What would that look like, maybe if you can give a brief description? And how would the Black experience look in that same experience?
Oh man. Working with a crew. I think a lot of folks are shocked at first, because crews, excuse me, crews are very tight knit. They're people that you have to rely on, to get your work done and for your safety. So a lot of times, I'm not going to say crews are not welcoming, but a lot of times crews want to know that whoever they're bringing on is competent. So I think a lot of times that may be a bit of a shock for folks, because they may get this stigma that the crew doesn't like them and whatnot. And most of the time, it's not it at all. They just want to know that you're somebody that they can rely on. So what you can expect a lot of times if you're new to the crew is you're going to be doing a lot of that grunt work. You're going to be doing, a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily want to do. And, I wouldn't be discouraged by that. You got to earn your keep some way. So, I say that especially for our folks of color, because, they may take that as, the crew not wanting to work with them specifically because they are a person of color, when, that may not be the case. One of the first, like literally in the middle of his forehead, and we got our work done just fine. As far as safety went, as far as getting things done on time, I had no quarrel or qualm with that man. So what I would say is, leave your feelings at the door. Don't take very many things too personal. We all know what disrespect is. And, I would never tell anybody to tolerate any of that. But, crews are very tight, and, you got to do everything in your power to show them that they can rely on you.
Right. Another two-part question. Are women ever in leadership roles in the trades? And how do women kind of come into this fold that's traditionally male-driven?
Good question.
So taking I'm thinking about from the trade perspective as opposed to in general what I've seen out in construction. I know, like, from construction management and from the owner side, you do see, I do have and work with, and I've seen a lot of women that are on that management side. But I think on the trades, not as much. And part of that is just because I don't think that women have been provided enough opportunity in the field to kind of like what Charles was saying about earning your keep and getting to that point. Because usually the people that are the superintendents and the foremans and those type of folks have been on the job and done the job for a long time. And so I don't know. I take that back. When you look at when you think about the trades, when you think about electrician and I think I've seen a couple females in electrical field that have run crews. I know the predominant of the traffic control supervisors, I've seen a lot of them have been women, and they run the crews and where everybody's working and different things like that. Laborers, operators, those type of things. I can't say that I've seen a lot of women in those leadership positions. I see them, but I also see less women in those trades. I do see, you'll see female operators, you know, whether rollers or graders, different things like that, operating equipment quite often. But as far as running crews and different things like that, from some of those other trades, I can't say that I've necessarily seen it, but I think a lot of that too has to be with the opportunities to grow and get the experience to get to that level. Because it's not like we've got the large pool of folks already that have built up that resume and that background and that experience level. And so getting in and, you know, changing it from that perspective, it's gonna take the time getting the opportunities involved. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see trades for the Black and Brown community in the next 10 years?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I think my phone was breaking up.
Where do you see trades for the Black and Brown community in the next 10 years?
Where do I see it, or where would I like to see it? Where do I see it? I definitely see there being more Black and Brown introduced into the trades. The only thing that I think folks need to take into consideration is, you know, building is one of the oldest professions in the world, right? So, you know, you got a bunch of hungry folks in the Midwest, you know, who literally just chase work. So, you know, while we're trying to change the face by introducing the trades to young men and women of color, you know, you have literally thousands of journeymen, tradesmen and women in the Midwest who all they're doing is, you know, they're born and bred to just, you know, work that kind of work. And, you know, they have no problem with chasing the work. So, you know, while we're out looking for folks to bring in, these folks are out looking for these opportunities to move to. You know, you have a bunch of apprenticeships in the Midwest who are actually paying their folks to go and chase the work. So we kind of have to battle with that, but I do absolutely see there being more Black and Brown men and women of color introduced into the trades. I would love for it to be introduced back into the high schools. You know, I think that would help us tremendously because, you know, somewhere along the lines, we pull those programs out of high schools, but men and women of color, though.
No, I agree. I think it's going to, but I think also just demographics. And I was talking with a woman about the education system, and she brought up the fact that more than half of the students under 5 are people of color. So there is going to be no option as we move forward. You know, because the workforce is changing and those jobs are going to be, the demographics is going to change enough where it's not going to be it's just going to change where those opportunities are going to come through. That's what I see the future as.
Well, thank you guys. I would like to kind of move around our schedule that I had written out and actually move into a Q&A session for the audience. If anyone in the audience, just unmute your mic and shoot our guests any questions you may have at this time.
I understand there was discussion about legal history, and you guys have given some great answers. I was wondering, one, whether there is a connection with Awami, who happens to be an agency or a group of business persons who do provide that sort of work support in those fields for people of color? And two, how do we get around? Because my concern is the legal history issue for our clients. Generally, the trades has been a place for people, as Charles noted, has been a place for people with legal history could just enter. Now that's becoming more challenging. Even individuals who have some of the background or academic backgrounds. I know I'm asking an extended question, and I apologize. But one, are we working with a WAMI, or are they a part of this process? And two, can you give us some insight on what we can do to help support those individuals who are seeking to enter the trades, who have legal histories and have been stonewalled because of those legal histories? Sorry for the long question.
No, no worries. As far as having, blemishes on I haven't seen any apprenticeship organization. Most of them don't even ask if you've had any legal issues when entering. But it would be something that I would disclose to whoever my coordinator was with the apprenticeship, just so, they know what types of jobs to not send you out on, because you can get negative blemishes for turning jobs down. So it's good to have that communication with the apprenticeship coordinator. As far as working with entities and organizations, not only because at times things like this doesn't really rule you out, unless it's kind of the one-offs where, they're working out at Intel and, they just have things that they can't be around. But for the most part, most of the employers, they know what kind of work attracts these folks. So it's a lot that we can get around. As far as the educational background, that is a little more difficult. It's a little bit easier for me to get somebody in who's a felon with a high school diploma than somebody who's not a felon and doesn't have a high school diploma. So we can work with a lot of things, but not having, at least a GR bronze level, I believe, is the lowest that most apprenticeships will take. So I think organizations who are looking to plug folks who have blemishes on their background should definitely be looking at the educational piece more than, what's necessarily on their background. Because, like I said, a lot of things can be looked past, but that educational piece is a tough one to get by.
Any other questions from the audience?
At SOAR, I'll jump in again. At SOAR, we're contemplating creating a pre-referral process for a lot of our participants, so that we can prepare them for some of the things that both you gentlemen have been talking about, which is getting a greater understanding on their academic backgrounds, possibly getting some understanding of some legal history issues or legal history that might be there that could keep them from getting jobs, but more importantly, getting them heads up on what the expectation is or when we're connecting them to you. What things do you think that we should add to a, say, pre-referral orientation for those of our participants, we're seeking to refer to you for trades positions?
Mm. Mm. Huh. Well, when we interview folks for the pre-apprenticeship, I'm not really too interested in how much they know, unless, I feel like they know too much to be in the program. But it's just certain things I like to hear from them. I really like if they know somebody who's involved in the trades, somebody close to them, somebody that they can, see work, they can ask questions. I would try to put in place something where, you have them show up, a few times, that way we know that they can get places on time. It's really kind of a crapshoot, I know you guys are just going off of what people say, and it's very difficult to deal with what people say until they're actually in the trade. But whatever you can do that shows that they can demonstrate getting places on time. Do they have any relatives or close family friends involved in the trades? Somebody who, they can talk to about it, those types of things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Last call for questions. All right, well, I would like to give Joshua last statements of any kind of words of encouragement or advice that he has for us to share with our clients and those clients who may be here listening. And then we will have Charles follow up to share about news about our pre-apprenticeship coming up this month.
I think the only thing I would think about, and I think about this one a lot. Like Charles said, never tell anybody to accept disrespect. But at the end of the day, think about that check that you're gonna get for what you're putting in.
Think about
And
that check.
I mean, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, putting that food on the table and roof over your head, be able to provide for your kids. And the jobs we're talking about are ones that are meaningful, that you're gonna be able to have a nice house, a decent car, and raise you a couple kids and not be really struggling. I mean, it's always a struggle, but you can, these are middle class jobs where people are making good livings, working. Go ahead, you put in your 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day sometimes, and come home and, deal with some of that stuff and work through it. Like you said, especially on the front end, you got to think about getting through the apprentice program so you get the journeyman. And then once you get the journeyman, think about, getting the foreman or superintendent and things like that. But, if that's where you want to go with it, but think about that check that you're going to get at the end of the week.
Think about that check. Listen, I'm trying to tell you, there have been tons of times where, I have put things to the side because, I was making $34 an hour while I was, 25 years old. So, when you're able to live the life that you enjoy, that you think you deserve, a lot of things, to roll off your back. So, I mean, we all know what blatant disrespect is, but once that money starts rolling in, it makes it a lot easier to look past a lot of stuff.
All right, well, Charles, will you share with us about the upcoming cohort and what we can do for our clients?
Yeah, so we're going to be running our next cohort July 27th. It's going to be 12 weeks. It's going to end around the last week of October. And the reason being is we want to get our folks out and working before the weather, gets really bad, because they start to slow down on taking new apprentices when the weather gets bad. One of the things that we are going to change up, though, is you need to be able to pass a drug test to get into the program. That's just what it is. That's industry standard. I think we do a well enough job of telling our folks that far enough in advance to where that shouldn't be an issue. We will send out a flyer for you guys that will have the link for the application. If you guys have any applicants, please send them to us. We will be scheduling interviews here the second week of July, so we can get our work readiness training and stuff like that done at the end of the third week, so we can get them rolling for July 27th.
Hey, I got a question real quick. So the brothers that was in the class prior to the COVID, are they still going to be able to graduate or finish their course?
Yes. So one of the things that I've been talking to with Meg and Tori is we want to bring them back and we want to give them their slots, but we just want to run them back through the cohort, because this cohort that we had, we had a lot of struggles, and I think that for most of the folks in the cohort, it would be beneficial for them to run through the training again. If it's not something that they want to do, we've talked about providing them with an option to where they can either come back for the last 4 weeks, because all they had left to do was 4 weeks. They can come back the last 4 weeks. They can get their accreditations like the OSHA 10. They can get their flaggers and their CPR and things like that. But for most of them, I would recommend that they just run through it again, because we had some difficulties with this last cohort.
Okay, and are you guys going to reach out to those individuals, or should we reach out to those who are in our case?
No, we will reach out, but in case, because a lot of numbers have changed and things like that. But if I am not able to get into contact, I will definitely be reaching out to you.
Okay, copy.
All right, and so I would like to make a final announcement that we are starting orientations this week for Summer Works. You guys have young adults 16 to 24 who are looking for summer internship opportunities. Please funnel them to Chai and Watt so that we can get them through the application process, their orientations, and we can get them assigned a summer position. With that, I want to thank everyone who showed up and shared their time with us, and want to give a special thanks to Joshua for sharing his time and talking about construction management. And hopefully we can all meet again and convene some more conversations around construction and the trades. So have a wonderful 3-day weekend for those who got that. And other than that, I will see you guys later.
Thank you.
Joshua and Charles. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, peace.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.